Rabbi Sai, so since today is Chamisha Asa B'Shvat, which is the yahrzeit of my father, Avi Mori, Rabbi Avram, Rabbi Cheskel Shraga, Zechroini Levrocha, I want to share with you some lessons that I learned from him. I mean, not to say from what he preached, but rather from how he lived. Yeah, from how he lived his life. But we'll begin with the Parsha. It says in Kapitel Yud Ches, Pasuk Ches, the Pasuk says, V'yisaper Moshe l'choisnoi es kol asher osa Hashem leparoi. Moshe told his father-in-law everything that Hashem did leparoi u'lemitzrayim. He did to Paroi, he did to Mitzrayim, al oidois Yisrael, for the sake of Yisrael. Es kol hatlo'o Hashem mitzoasam baderech vayatzilim Hashem. So what's kol hatlo Hashem mitzoasam baderech vayatzilim Hashem? Rashi says all the travail that had befallen them on the way, and Hashem rescued them. That's not what Rashi says. I mean to say that's the Pirush Hamilas. That's the literal meaning of these words. Rashi teaches es kol hatlo she'al hayam v'shel Amalek. So Rashi specifies these two things. He told them about l'chayre kriyas Yamsuf and Mulchemes Amalek. He told Yisro. But this is difficult to understand. In the beginning of the parsha, it already says, "Vayishma Yisro koyay midyon choysen Moshe es kol asher osa Elokim l'Moshe l'Yisrael amaki hoitzi Hashem es Yisrael miMitzrayim." So he heard it all. Rashi says on Vayishma Yisro, Ma Shmuel Shoma Ubo. What did he hear and that caused him to come? Kriyas Yamsuf and Mulchemes Amalek. So particularly these two things that Rashi mentions in the Kol Hatlo, Rashi already tells us in the Vayishma Yisro that he heard these things. He heard these things. He heard about Kriyas Yamsuf and Mulchemes Amalek. So he heard it from afar. And that's why he came. So why does it say over here that he's telling him as Kol Hatlo? And Rashi says, She'al Hayam v'Shel Amalek. On Vayisaper Moshe l'choisnoi, Rashi says, Limshoich es liboy lekarvoy l'Torah. That why did Moshe Rabbeinu tell his father-in-law about all this? Limshoich es liboy, to draw his heart, lekarvoy l'Torah, to bring him closer to Torah. But Yisro already came to be Makabel the Torah. Why do we need now to be Limshoich es liboy lekarvoy l'Torah? In the beginning of the parsha, when it says that Yisro came El Hamidbar, Rashi says, Af anu yoidim shebamidbar hoya. We all know that this is happening in the Midbar. That's where Klal Yisrael is. And if he's coming to meet Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael, he's obviously coming to the Midbar. Why does the pasuk have to spell out that he's coming El HaMidbar? Ela b'shivchoi shel Yisro diber HaKosov. The pasuk wants to emphasize and wants to highlight the shevach of Yisro. The Torah is, so to speak, singing the praises of Yisro. Yisro was on top of the world. And nevertheless, he had the nedivus alev, the generosity of spirit, to come to the midbar, mekaim tohu, a place of wilderness, l'shmoya divrei Torah. So Yisro came from kvoidoi shel olam to the midbar, l'shmoya Torah. And a few psukim later it says, Vayisaper Moshe l'choisnoi. Yeah, and Rashi says, why was he Vayisaper Moshe l'choisnoi? Limshoich es liboy lekarvoy l'Torah. It all happened already. He came and he wants the Torah, and his heart was drawn from afar, and he left his kvoidei shel olam. He came to the midbar mekayim Torah l'shmoya Torah. So what's it all about? Why do we need now Limshoich es liboy lekarvoy l'Torah? So in Pashup Pshat, I think it's the Pshat is like this. Yisro heard about the miracles and wonders of Kriyas Yamsuf and Mulchemes Amalek. That's Vayishma Yisro. Rashi says he heard about Kriyas Yamsuf and Mulchemes Amalek, and since he saw the Gvuras Hashem, he came to the Madrega of Ato Yodati Ki Godol Hashem Mikol HaEloikim. Yeah, and he came to the Midbar to receive the Torah. But that's not enough. Because you know how the Rambam says in the beginning of the 14th parak in Hilchas Yisurei Bia, Ketzad mekablin geirei atzedek. Yeah, how do we accept geirei atzedek? Kishayovay echad lehisgayer mina akum. If a guy comes to convert, v'yivdiku achrov v'lo yimtzu ila, we will check and we'll know that there's no ulterior motive. Okay, so oimrim loy, ma ra'isa shebasa lehisgayer. What did you see? Why did you choose to convert? Yeah? Do you not know? Yisro b'zman hazeh dvuyim udchufim umesuchafim umetorafim v'yisurim bohem aleim. Im amar ani yoidea ve'eni kedai mekablen oisei miyad. So we say to him, don't you know that b'zman hazeh Yidden are afflicted, they're crushed, they're subjugated, they're stained, and suffering comes upon them. Yeah? So if he answers, I know. And ve'eni kedai, I mean, I wish I could be part of such a people. I wish I would be worthy of that suffering. That's when mekablen oisei miyad. And then the Rambam says in Halacha Beis, u'moidin oisei yikorei hadas, she'em yichud Hashem. Yeah, the fundamentals of Yiddishkeit we have to teach him. Yichud Hashem, the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'isur akum, the isur of avodah zarah, u'marichim b'davar zeh, u'moidin oisei miktzas mitzvos kalois, u'miktzas mitzvos chamuris, v'ein marichim b'davar zeh. So, you see, the first thing, before we even talk about emunah in the Rebbeinu Shalom, Yichud Hashem, and the isur of avodah zarah, and any mitzvahs, kalas v'chamuris, the first thing we tell him, listen, you know that to be a Jew, it involves suffering. And he has to accept that. He has to identify with the suffering. So it wasn't enough that Yisro heard about the miracles and the wonders of Yitzias Mitzrayim L'Chemes HaMolek. He has to hear Kol HaTlo'ah. He has to hear about the travail. In other words, he has to hear about the tlaw that preceded the Vayatzileim Hashem. In the end, it was Vayatzileim Hashem. And that you know. But that's not the real Limshoich Esliboy Lekarvoy Letorah. True, you left the Midbar. True, you left, the Kvoidei Shaloilam, and you came to the Midbar L'Shmoya Torah, but you were impressed by the success. You were impressed by the miracles and wonders. That's not enough. You have to know about the tla'ah. You have to know about what came before that. You have to know about the panic and the pain. And only then your connection with Torah is the proper connection with Torah. As the Gemara says in Yevamos Dafayim Vav, that ein mekablim gerim b'yemei shloimoi. Then the time of Shlomo, we weren't mekabel gerim. B'pnei sheYisrael shruyim b'roiv tova. Because Yidden had it good. So it doesn't just mean because maybe he's coming because he wants the goodies. It means if your connection with Yiddishkeit is based on the understanding that this brings good. That's not the real connection. You have to be willing to suffer. Yeah, the in Parshas V'Eschanon, the pasuk says, "Ki am kodesh, ato l'Hashem Elokecha." B'cho bachar Hashem Elokim liyos le'am zgula mikol ha'amim. V'goyim Eloi mirubchem mikol ha'amim choshak bochem Hashem bochem v'yivchar bochem ki atem amat mikol ha'amim ki me'ahavas Hashem eschem. So the Ramban says, what does this mean? Ki me'ahavas Hashem eschem, but why? The Ramban says, "V'omer atam ki me'ahavas Hashem eschem bochar bochem shero eschem ru'uyim lehis ahev lefonov." He saw that you're worthy of being loved by him. V'nifchorim la'ahava yoyse mikol ha'amim, that you're ro'ui to be chosen, to be loved more than the other nations. V'lo hiske b'zatam. It doesn't say why. Rak ha'bechira, just the choice. So now the Ramban says a very powerful line. He says, Ki ha'nivchar lo'oyev. Who is nivchar lo'oyev? Who is chosen by a lover to be loved? He says, Ki ha'nivchar lo'oyev hayoidea lizboil es oyhavoy. Who's chosen to be loved? Somebody that knows how to be soivel, which means to tolerate, to accept the b'chol haba olav mimenu, whatever you'll do to me. In other words, whether it's good, whether it's bad, my ava will not be moved out of place. That's the one that's nivchar la'ava. Yisro ru'im lekach mikol am. He says because Yidden are Amid ben Isyonis, and Memela Yidden are reliable, are trustworthy, are chosen to be loved because they love the Rebbeinu Shalom in a way that's unshakable, that's unbreakable, because they're willing to be soivel the oihev. So listen, my father was 14 years old when he was taken to the camps. That day, he got there, Chof Tasir. I mean, his parents, his siblings, his grandparents on both sides were all killed. He writes that about 100 members of his extended family were killed on that day, and he was left all alone. Now, uh, yeah, his experience in the camps is a story b'fnei atzmai, but I'm just saying like this. In 1947, he came to the United States. In 1950, he gave out his first sefer, which is called Even Yecheskel. And he writes over there in the Hakdama, he's a 20-year-old at this point, yeah? He's writing, it's 5 years after he was liberated. And he describes a bit about what happened, yeah? He says, he came to this after they were all killed in Auschwitz. They took him to a camp called Melk in Austria, and it was very difficult work. And they hit them on all the time. And Baboiker amarnu mi yitain erev, u'ba'erev amarnu mi yitain boiker. And we always had death in front of our eyes. I saw how strong people, canked out every day from hunger and from hard work. People that in the morning they left to work, they looked healthy, they were brought back dead at night. Human life had no value. Yeah, every day, like 80 people in our group died. Every month they brought new people to fill up the quota. And he says the truth, I'll say the truth, I don't really understand how I took the strength to remain alive when I saw stronger people didn't have the koich. But the only thing I can say is that my emunah and bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu was my strength. And I never had thoughts of yiush to say, in any case, I'm lost. Even when I had a terrible illness of typhus that was korev lemisa v'rochik l'chaim, he says 90% of the people died from this. And even then, cherev chado hoisa munachas al tzavori lo nisya'ashti min harachamim. And then he says, listen to this. The truth must be told. I never felt such joy about the fact that I'm a Yid, like I felt during these days, during this time. Believe mole simcha gila rina v'titza amarti b'chol yom ashreinu matay b'chalkeinu umanoim garaleinu umayof Yerushaseinu. So machti shezachisi liyois Yehudi. I was happy to be a Jew. Mizer Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov me'am hasoivel tzoros rabbis b'chol meshech zman kiyumai. And then he describes a story like lo yimona milahalis alaksav. Ma'ase kosa shemareg dulosan shel Yisro. How we connected with the Rebbeinu Shalom in all conditions. He says that it was Simchas Torah, and he was together with 50 Bachrim. He says like 15, 16-year-olds. And they were left behind in the camp. For some reason, they weren't sent to work that day. Doesn't know why. But since they didn't, since they were such Rishonim, they made them stand outside in the cold. They didn't let them be in the barracks. So they were standing outside and they were standing together, to warm up in a corner. And then they reminded themselves that it's Simchas Torah. And then they started dancing and singing. And he writes, all these songs. He says, who knows how many more hours we would have danced if not for the fact that the Nazis noticed and they came and they hit them and they beat them up. So he says, this is a tremendous musaskel, how you didn't have Avos Hashem in all conditions. And he says that I really, you shouldn't think that I'm such a Bal Madrega, but he says that in such kind of situations, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives people who want the strength and the ability to rise and to reach higher madregas than the shaykh. In any case, the kol hatlo'o, the travail, not only didn't move him away from emunah and dveikus and Hakadosh Baruch Hu, he embraced his fate with faith. And he was proud to be included in the Yisro Bizman Hazed, the Fuyim, Uschufim, Umuturofim, Vitzores Boim Aleim. That's really what it means to be a Jew. And in the camps, he made a neder that he will, if he survives, he will dedicate his life to learning. And immediately after the Holocaust, he started to learn up a storm and became who he became. He didn't necessarily have an easy life after that either, but it was a life full of purpose and happiness and also gratitude. He was always thankful in every situation for what he has. At the age of 53, he became terminally ill. And I spoke to him like 1 hour after he got the diagnosis that he has 6 weeks to live. And in the end, he actually lived almost 5 years. But he said to me, and this is what he said, I'm not upset. The truth is that most of my friends died over 40 years ago. I had an extra 42 years. I learned some Torah. I did mitzvahs. I raised a family. So I have so much to be thankful for. And then he said, why should I be disappointed? Did I have a contract with the Rebbeinu Shalom for 80 years that he went bad on the contract? He gave me what he gave me, and I'm thankful for every minute. So this he said, mamish, 1 hour after he found out that he's about to die. So, another point I just want to say, like a year and a half before he was nifter, he was already sick for a few years, but he stumbled upon the Sefer Ale Shur from Rav Wolbe, and he became very attached to the Sefer, and he was koveya limud in the Sefer every day. And he went over it a few times in the last year and a half of his life. Now, he told me that he feels so bad that he didn't see the Sefer before because he feels that it really helps him work on his midas. But could you imagine a man that's already deadly ill and about to die? He's thinking about, working on his midas. That's somebody that understands that life is a task. Life is a mission. And every moment of life is for a purpose. And therefore, he's not thinking about what happened to me, but he's thinking about what am I supposed to do. Actually, like a week before he died, he said to me, and he was in tremendous pain, he said to me that my nesoya now is al toimar shasha oil base monesloch, that don't say that the grave is your escape. In other words, because a person in such pain, he just he has that in his soul. So that's his avoidance. In other words, every matziv presented a different avoider. His avoider now is al toimar shasha oil base monoisloch. Listen, Baruch Hashem, most of us don't have these level of difficulties and challenges, but everyone could learn, first of all, to see every obstacle as a challenge and every challenge as an opportunity for growth. This way we'll live a life of meaning, and we'll never be disappointed when things don't go the way we want them to go, and we'll be thankful for anything that we do have, and we'll use every opportunity to grow and to move in the right direction. Okay, Rabbi Isai, I want to wish you all a good Shabbos.